What is up, guys? Today we have something exciting to talk about. Sorry if there's any excess noise in this video. I have both of my dogs in here and they are both restless and will not just sit still. But today we have something extremely exciting to talk about. I'm a little late to the game, but today we are talking about the Sony ZV-1. Now, I've been using a Canon G7X Mark II since my filmmaking career started. That was my first camera, and that was what I used for all my YouTube videos and a lot of other just small projects. And that thing is at least 6 years old at this point, I think more. So I was looking for an upgrade and looking around, and the best option, at least for me, seemed to be this Sony ZV-1. So I finally got my hands on one of these, and I've been running a few tests. So first we'll go through just a few of the really cool features of this camera, and then I will cut over to a video I took earlier today, just walking around in my backyard with this camera, more of like a vlogging scenario, to see how it did in terms of stabilization and the microphones built in. So this is a point and shoot camera, so it runs off of a 1-inch CMOS sensor, and that sensor has approximately 20.1 megapixels, I believe. One big spec to this camera is the fact that it has a 1.8 to 2.8 aperture lens on it. So at the widest end, which is, I'm assuming, what you'll be using the camera mostly in if you're using it for vlogging, you will be using a 1.8 aperture on that end. And then if you were to zoom in the lens, you still only have to go to a 2.8. So it's really not a bad range for such a small camera. Now, Sony has added in their stabilization in this camera, and it works pretty well from what I can tell. You have your standard option and then your active option. The active works a lot better, but when you use the active, you have to deal with a pretty significant crop on the image. But I was able to counteract the crop and still get a pretty wide angle by using just a small Joby GorillaPod, or you could be using Sony's vlogging handle. So Sony has put out a vlogging grip or Bluetooth grip for this camera or any of their other cameras it will work with. So you could use that. I just like using my GorillaPod, so I have a little bit more flexibility on where I can put the camera, but either works, and it gets it just a little farther away from the face so that you don't have to deal with such a close shot. Now, normally this camera is going to, without any crops, so stabilization or any other crops that it adds in, it's going to be running a 24 millimeter lens, which in my opinion, they could have gone just a little bit wider, but I'm going to let that slide because of all the other cool features they added into this camera. So built in, they have a 3-stop ND filter, which is very helpful when you're in those bright scenarios, but still want to get that blurry background with the lower aperture. Up top, they have added a 3-capsule microphone to try to get a better audio signal out of this. So if you don't want to add an external microphone, you can still get pretty good audio out of just the camera itself. That brings me to another point of this camera, is they added a mic jack and a hot shoe, so you can pop a microphone on top or even a flash if you wanted to, and it would work. So that to me is a huge addition to a video camera or a vlogging camera, is being able to put on my Rode Video Micro and get just a little bit better audio than you would straight out of camera. But if you're using the microphones in camera, one thing they did add in with this when you purchase it is a dead cat. So when you buy it, you get this little dead cat up top, and it slides right into the hot shoe right here and goes right over the microphone on top. Now, if you ask me, this is a very cool addition to a vlogging setup. Still keeps it pretty small without having to add in a microphone with a dead cat on it, which will substantially increase the size of this compact camera. Now, this wouldn't be a Sony camera if it didn't have their legendary eye autofocus, and it does, and it works phenomenally. I was testing it out in the clips I will show you, and it stayed locked on for the most part indefinitely, and I didn't really have any focusing issues when walking back and forth, seeing if I could get it to slip up. So I think that this is another cool addition to a vlogging camera, is making sure they have their focusing technology dialed in. Now, another vlogging centric feature they added in is a button on the top of the camera that is called the defocus background button. So what this does is if you are in a situation where you have your aperture a little higher or your settings aren't completely perfect for a blurry bokeh background, if you press that button on top, it will optically change the settings for you right there and then and blur out the background. It will do whatever it can to get that aperture to the lowest value possible in your current shooting situation if you want to defocus that background. Now, another feature that is super cool, when you have the camera and you are using it, usually when you hold up a product to a camera, you have to wait for it to focus, like right here on my Sony a7 III. But on the ZV-1, as soon as you pull an item in front of the camera, it will automatically focus on the item instead of having to hunt for focus and wait for your face or make you put the hand behind the item to block out your face to get it to focus a little faster. It will automatically lock onto whatever item you're holding up, and this is called Product Showcase. A lot of YouTubers are going to be reviewing items or at least using products and items in their videos, and Sony knew that you would want to be showing those to the camera, so they added in the Product Showcase feature, which I really love. Now, one thing that I skipped over but noticed when I opened up the camera, a cool feature on this for when you're in a scenario where you just really want to grab a shot, when the camera is off, all you have to do is open up that screen and the camera automatically turns on, and when you flip that screen and close it in on the body, the camera turns off. So if you're in a situation and you want to grab a really quick shot, it just kind of skips one step to have to turn on the camera before you start recording. Now, this camera comes in at $799, and at that price for a 4K amazing point and shoot that is built off of the architecture of point and shoots that are usually upwards of $1,200, give or take, they had to make some compromises. One of those is they took off the focusing or zoom ring on the front of the camera, so it is not there anymore. And they also built this camera a little bit more plasticky, which I wasn't a fan of at first, but it makes it lighter and it makes it a little bit easier to carry around. So you just have to be careful knowing that the build isn't as nice as an RX 100, but that being said, they made it super light and they were able to get that price down to $799 for a still very capable vlogging camera. A few other things they took away was the mode dial up top. Now when you look at the top of your camera, you just get your record button, your mode button, your power button, defocus button, and your microphone right there. So to switch modes and do a lot of your settings, you will have to go into the menus, but when I'm using a camera for vlogging or just on-the-go video, I'm not wanting to run through the menus anyway. I usually have it set on one single setup and usually leave it there, so this isn't too much of a problem personally for me. Ooh, it's super hot in here. Now, another cool feature of this camera, I keep saying that, another cool feature. So another thing that they added in, knowing that this would be a mostly vlogging or content creation tool, is face priority exposure. So now when you're walking, under bridges, into dark rooms, into sunlight, and you have your camera on auto, it is going to prioritize the exposure for your face. So no matter the situation, it may be a little darker, too bright in the background, but what it's focusing on is making sure the face or the subject in frame is at the correct exposure. And in some situations here or there, that might be not great, but in almost every situation where you're recording yourself, this is going to help out a ton. Now, of course, with a vlogging camera, they added in a beauty mode where it smooths your skin and gives you that filter effect. It comes turned on, so if you buy this camera and you see that happening, just know you have to turn it off if you don't want that. I personally turned it off. I'm not a fan of smoothing or beauty modes, but that's just me. Now in this camera, you have a slow and quick mode too. You can record up to 960 frames per second for slow-mo, which is going to be amazing. You just have to keep in mind that you're still recording at a pretty low bit rate, so be careful with that footage. But the fact that they added that in is super cool, and it makes this even more of a well-rounded camera. Now you get one SD card slot, and they stayed with their older batteries from their point and shoots, which don't last too long. So definitely pick up a couple extras if you're getting this camera and you're going on a trip or you're going to be out all day shooting. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of gripes. They added in the fully articulating screen. They added in a newer microphone that helps just getting audio straight out of camera. They added in a mic jack, product showcase, face auto exposure, background defocus. Really a lot of things you would want if you're going to be vlogging with this camera. Now, of course, this is a camera based on vloggers and content creators, but it can still take some pretty good photos. You can still shoot in RAW, and you can still shoot. So you can still shoot in RAW and get photos that you can edit a good amount in Lightroom or whatever editing software you use. So don't think that you won't be able to take photos with this, because it will still look, in my opinion, as good as shooting photos on an RX 100. Now, last and not least, I would like to talk about the shooting picture profiles. So last but not least, I would like to mention that on this camera, they did add in their picture profiles. So if you like to shoot in HLG, Cine, or S-Log on your other Sony cameras and want to match the footage up with the ZV-1, and if you want to match up that footage with the ZV-1, you will be able to fairly easily, because you can still shoot in S-Log, HLG, or Cine. You can still build up your own picture profile, and I think that is a big win for the ZV-1. Now, of course, this was just kind of an overview of the camera and showing you a little bit of a vlogging test on the camera. I'm going to go use this thing when I go to Gatlinburg, Tennessee this weekend and see how it works vlogging on a trip. I will post that video and add in some more notes and things I noticed as I was using it in the next video. But for now, this is going to be it. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, leave a like or a comment down below. Think about subscribing. I will be making more camera content, technology content, videography, photography. I make content. Anyway, that is it for me. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you have a wonderful day.